Good morning. Yeah, it is morning, right? Welcome to
This
the
morning,
Entrepreneur's Journey Live. I'm Natalie, and my co-host is Martin.
Martin
Martin
Noches.
Notes.
Do you forget?
Um, yeah, holy crap. Well, no, I was going to let you talk a little bit. So nice of me, right? But yeah, I should say your name. Anyway, it's been a freaking couple weeks. Like, wow, it's the week before Thanksgiving. 6 days until Thanksgiving. Crazy. Things have been moving in my life. And you were just saying before we came on that
Busy
your
times.
clients, like people are just like, okay, let's do
People
this.
getting
Let's go.
stuff done.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're
So
getting
shout
things
out
done.
to getting stuff done.
Yep.
And sometimes we have ebbs and flows in business where it's just go time and you don't always get as much balance as you would love. And then there's other times where you get to exercise that full balance. So, and that's what we're going to be talking about this morning.
Right.
So,
We're going
yeah,
to talking about balance in the concept of entrepreneurship.
yeah. Good morning, Candace. And
Oh,
there's Connor in the
faithful.
background. Yeah, if you're here with us, put it in the chat. We'd love to know that you're here. We'd love to see your comments, any questions you have. You can even join us on screen if you want to. I know that's scary for a lot of people, but hey,
We don't bite.
we don't
Um,
mind.
no, and whatever you're watching from, you can just post your question as if it was a comment and we will see it.
I'm glad you made that instruction, gave them that instruction because I've always wondered, is that what you do?
That's exactly how it happens. Yeah. So wherever you're watching,
Perfect.
and call you anything.
It's a Friday. It's crazy. It's sunny out in the Pacific Northwest. We're super excited about that. Okay. So let's start a little bit. So you
So
want to ask me a question?
why are we talking about this? Why do you think that we should be talking about balance in
Oh,
entrepreneurship?
this is all I want to talk about 24/7. I am so passionate about this topic. I have not respected, valued, honored what my recipe of balance is for many years. I have hid it behind other things. I have fallen flat on the floor. I off the pedestal. I've had to relook at it and say, okay, I got to figure this out because this isn't working. And I'm banging my head against the wall, thinking that I shouldn't have this and I don't deserve it.
Hmm.
So that's why we're talking about it. So, little background story. A lot of people have heard the background story, but there was a time when in Pacific Perks where Jim and I were working side by side, and his disability of MS caused him to not be able to do the day to day. So, I had to step in. I mourned that. And then I realized, wow, this is where I want to be. This feels right. I'm in my element. So that was a great opportunity, but I also realized at the same time running the business was completely on my shoulders with help of, a team. I was raising my young kids with a disabled husband. So, if you're a mom, it's a little bit different. And then if there's a disability in the house, it's a little bit different. And running the household as well, and concerned about my husband constantly. Now, my responsibility in that, there's a lot of it, is you can be very codependent in that way where you're rising and falling with everyone's emotions in the business, with your kids, with your husband, with a medical issue. And that can really leave you with nothing left for sure. So I got to that point, and throughout that point, I realized something has to change with the help of others. And I had someone tell me, so just to set up the little story, I'd be at the office like 8 to 3:30, and then Jim was going to come to the office at 3:30, and I'd go home and put my mom hat on because I love being a mom. And the girls were in grade school, and what happened is he was unable to do that. And that was heartbreaking for both of us. And I really needed that time. And someone said to me, "What happens from 3:30 to 5 that you can't deal with tomorrow?" And that was really life-changing because I was like, Yeah, if someone calls me at 4, they're not expecting a phone call back, that day. And if they are, they're probably not my client. And you put up backup phone numbers in case it's an emergency to call. You're never totally cut off. And so doing that, I started going home at 3:30. But the asshole in my head spoke to me for 6 months at least, very pronounced. You're not really supposed to be here. You really should be there. You should be doing this. You shouldn't be doing that. And it took about, 6 months to really quiet that asshole and say, no, I'm right where I need to be and become more present at home. And that was really the start of some of that major balance change.
I think there's so many interesting things about what you just said. The first one that pops in my head is, I have conversations with a lot of starting level entrepreneurs all the time.
Hmm.
And sometimes they say things that I go, why? Where did you come up with that? Right? Like the 9 to 5 thing, right? Where did you come up with that? Like,
I'll tell you
why,
where we came up with
why,
it.
why did you need to be there to 5 and like say not to 6 or to 4? Like, there's all sorts of
Mhm.
preconceptions that we get from certain places, and I'm not gonna go off in my traditional rants again, school,
I
but
I I was ready to for you.
but but that's the thing, like there's this ideas, right, this preconceived notions that if you're an entrepreneur, unless you're providing a service that is directly correlated to a schedule, why do you care?
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
do too.
I blame men, Candace. I mean, a
Okay.
society has set us up that 8 to 5, that's what you do, you know? And we have all these shoulds and expectations, and that you're 100% right. If you're an entrepreneur, that is one thing you have is flexibility and ownership of your schedule. Take it. And
Use
guess
it.
what? You don't need a disability to hide behind. You don't need your mama telling you you can do it. You don't need anybody's blessing on that.
Well, what you mean by not hiding behind the disability, you mean it's like you don't need an outside factor, right? You don't need an excuse
Yeah.
to say this is why I need the flexibility.
Yeah.
And
So my recipe has been a 4-day work week for eons. And I would use the excuse of my husband's disability. I would
you
hide behind that.
you would
Like,
say
it
that that
was
was
way
the reason you
easier.
were doing the 4-day work week.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
way easier to do that when I started asking for that. I blamed it on him. Poor guy. And it was like I wasn't honoring what I needed because it just wasn't okay unless you had a horn coming out of your head
Right.
and people saw that you really needed 4 days a week.
Well, and that's I think the point I was trying to make is that I bet you anything that your clients at the time, at, when that was happening, they didn't have an opinion even about how many days you worked. Like,
Right.
you felt like you needed to justify it somehow, like, you
It's
felt
it's
like you
all
needed
us.
to say, "Why that's why I'm not here on Fridays," right? Or whatever day, and this is one of those places that I see. There's confluential forces that go into that, right? There's that whole programming where, like, you think a schedule, and I'll take a half an hour lunch, and I'll do it at my desk type of things. But then there's also a little bit of a toxicity to the culture of entrepreneurship itself,
Mhm.
where, like,
Mhm. Yeah.
they call it the hustle culture, or eh, there's this notion that if you're starting your own thing, you had to burn the candle at both ends, and you have to just sort
Exactly.
of like almost kill yourself to get things done. And I think that
Exactly.
that's going to be a big part of what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
I think that in order for us to talk about balance in entrepreneurship, the notion of balance assumes the notion of success, right? Like, the whole point is you're doing what you said You're achieving what you said, but you're doing it in a balanced form. You're not killing yourself. You're not heading to burnout. You're not sacrificing your relationship with your family, etc. That is the whole point. So I think that one of the healthy things to do is to define success.
Yeah, but to your point, I don't think when people become an entrepreneur, well, not all people. Some people just feel like I do have to burn the candle at both ends. They don't look
Right.
at, you know, okay, I'm doing this because I want balance, or, I'm going to get balance from this. Some people do. Things are changing. That's great. But we really need to bring this topic up to the surface constantly, because you can be successful, but let's define that, and have balance.
Right.
There are ways to have it, have both.
So how did
So
you define it?
so for me, balance is having space in life around in my life. So I am not man to something. I have complete flexibility. I have a successful business where our clients love us most of the time. A culture where our team loves where they're working. I'm giving opportunity to people, amazing people, where we collaborate together. Success is not, I want to be a multimillionaire. That is not for me. And it's okay if it is for you, but for me, it isn't. Success is also being able to pull in support to help me create the life that I want. And the life that I want is a life where I'm not waiting to retirement to enjoy. I'm enjoying it as I go along in this journey.
Mm.
And I have told my team I booked a trip for Puerto Vallarta next Wednesday, and I get to leave. And I actually just did tell Tristan yesterday that,
Surprise.
and this was a little hard. I am going to the franchise meeting in New Jersey, which is November 30th.
Oh, yeah.
And my girls are meeting me in New York on the 2nd. And we'll be back December 6th. And this is the busiest season. But there's an opportunity. I'm taking it. I know my team can handle it. I know that I can pull in where I need to if they need me. And so, yeah, it's just for me, it's enjoying life and creating opportunities for people along the way.
And it's New York around the holidays. Who wouldn't?
I know. And it's my third New York in the holidays consecutively. So, yeah. So, anyway, so that's kind of how I define success. It's not a number. It's we're keep moving forward, we're keep doing things, we're, constant innovation, we're working on things, we're diving in deep, we're trying to do our best, and we're living as humans.
Well, I think there's going to be a theme for today's conversation, and the theme is custom. It's your own thing, right?
Exactly.
I wasn't kidding when I said you're going to have to define it. I wasn't talking just to you. I said
Oh, shoot,
you,
I thought you were talking to
you,
me.
the collective you, are going to have to define success
Yeah.
before you can start working towards it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, you're just, I guarantee you, working to some default perception, which is usually money,
Mhm.
right? People
Mhm.
think of success or default to this measure of success that says you don't have to work for a living, right? Which is who
Mhm.
doesn't,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
And or that like there's a certain amount of money you need to have. And those definitions tend to either turn you into a different person or turn you into a very unhappy version of the person you are,
Yeah.
right?
I've been there. Yeah.
I know a lot of really, really rich, really, really miserable people.
Yeah, absolutely. Or people that are looking back and thinking, "Oh my god, I missed my
Missed out on everything.
kids' lives. I missed out on all of this. Now I didn't think I'd have this ailment
Right.
at 58," and,
Yeah,
you know
for sure. And there's there's also I'm actually going to steal from our friend Megan Kelly, friend of the
Yeah.
show as well.
Yeah.
She posted something this weekend, by the way. If you're not following her on social media, definitely do. She's
Oh,
cool,
I'm loving hers.
and the stuff that she does is pretty great. But
Yeah.
she posted something about her own journey. She's always talking about her own journey as an entrepreneur, and she said that at the beginning she went into entrepreneurship seeking freedom, and a lot of people do that, right? They go, "Oh, well, I'm tired of the corporate thing. I'm going to go seek freedom." And then she makes a really cool distinction between freedom and autonomy. See, freedom
Mhm.
means no
Mhm.
constraints, but autonomy means being able to decide where to put your energy and your effort. And that
Yeah.
is really the value of entrepreneurship. The value
Yeah.
of entrepreneurship is that you are literally your own boss. And that is different than the perception of boss people have in corporate,
Mhm.
a lot different, because you still have a lot of responsibility. You have all the responsibility, right?
The end
You
of the
have to
day.
you have to
Mhm.
do all the things, but you can decide how you do them, with whom you do them. You can decide what time of the day you do them. I do some of my best
Exactly.
work at 2 in the morning.
Exactly. Absolutely.
And
I was just doing a talk on balance yesterday, to WOGA, in the Oil and Gas Association. So, um, and we were saying that, like, know your recipe. What is your recipe? So Martin and I have gone back and forth on the time for this podcast. And he proposed a time, and I was like, hell no. Are you kidding me?
like I'm not
I'm
available.
yawn I'm yawning right now. Like, do you see me? I'm lifeless. And for him, mornings are harder. So we're having a little retreat to figure all that out. But it's yeah,
Suggestions are welcome, by the
the
way.
suggestions are
If
welcome.
you're a regular
Yeah,
watcher, or if you're one of the people that we know now that are watching on the recording because you can't be with us live, give us a time. Like,
yeah.
let's
And
just
day.
let's just put it out as a
Yeah,
survey. What day works
yeah,
best? What time works best?
yeah,
We'll try to accommodate it, assuming it works for our own balance. But
yeah,
that's a good example, right?
yeah.
We have all sorts of flexibility. We both own
Exactly.
our time, right? We both own
Exactly.
our or directed focus. And that's, I think, is the true value of success.
For sure.
I think
Yeah.
autonomy is currency.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's
If you can
definitely up
say,
there with my health insurance being paid.
I'm the one who calls the shot. I'm the one who decides where my effort is put in, to what degree my effort is put in. You can also spread it out in days, right? You don't have to do. And I'm gonna throw a commercial in there, by the way. If you're pulling all-nighters for your business, that's fantastic. And you can do it and you care to do it, as long as there's something on the other end, right? Like, there's what are you getting out of that, right? And that
Hawaii
is
better
that is
be at the
not
end.
just that is not just money, right? Like,
Yeah,
you need to be able to say, okay, no, I just do good work like that in concentration, and then I can take a day
exactly.
off, right? And I can be completely disconnected. But if you're pulling all nighters for your corporate job, stop.
Absolutely.
Nobody's ever gonna compensate you for that. That
Absolutely. I
is
always
not that
say,
is not a good use of your time.
if you're working for someone, you get the ability to check in and check out and
And you
not
should.
carry it on your shoulders. So take it.
And you
Take it, take
should.
it, take it.
You're done at 5, be done with that.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. Yeah, so really knowing your recipe, what is that? And like you said, there is concentration of times where you have to really hustle and work on a project, and there is something at the end of that. But make sure that you need that breathing room, you need that downtime. I fought my recipe forever. And I think I've
Mm.
said this before, so if I'm repeating myself and it's not good content, Martin, just hit the no buzzer for me.
Just take you off the live stream.
Just mute me. Just mute me. But I have this part of me that is really like type A, go, 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 get the work done, firing on all cylinders. And then there's this other part of me that I need so much downtime, like almost 50-50, almost. And I hated this downtime Zen person that I had to be. And I honored the go, go, go person because that's what our society does, gives you the
Mm.
badge of honor. Oh, you were at the office till 7. Oh, you've been working so hard. Oh, and then I finally went, okay, I'm hearing it now. I have to have my Zen moments so that I can come back and have my go, go, go moments of productivity. And I need both in my life. And that's okay.
Totally. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's the beauty of it, right? If you
Yeah.
can say, okay, project due, I'm going to just bust a couple of days in nonstop. That's great. The fact that you can say that is great. I always tell anybody who'll listen that I'm a master procrastinator. I will wait till the night before of a big presentation to put it together. And the thing is that,
Martin, you just let something out like the fact that I don't drink coffee.
oh no,
You just got really vulnerable with this. And
look,
you're amazing.
I'll say it. It's it's sort of how I'm built, right? Like I can I can probably think about everything I'm gonna include in the presentation, but I'll be damned if I can't actually put it together weeks ahead of time or days ahead of time. I just cannot, right? And it's something I know about myself, and I have to like live with that, right? So I've developed the system. But the thing is, with that, can you imagine how that would play out in corporate America?
Right. You don't get to have the autonomy.
You don't have that, right? Your manager will be there going, hey, how's that presentation going? Let me have a look at it. Let me see what progress you're making, right? Because otherwise they're not justifying their salary. Uh, and and that's a difference. That is a
Mhm.
difference. Now I want to be super clear. I'm not dissing the corporate America jobs, right? There are some people
Mhm.
for whom that works fantastic, and they are
Mhm.
really great, and they can build careers, and they can like elevate their game, and it works. If they can respect their own time and their own autonomy, that works too. What I'm talking about is that sort of inherent nature of the people who are entrepreneurial, right? Like,
Mhm.
we don't work well in that environment. It just
Mhm.
doesn't go great,
Mhm.
right? We're disruptive in those environments. And if that's who you are,
If that's who you are. Mhm.
try autonomy. You'll
Mhm.
like it.
Mhm.
It'll
Yeah.
work. It'll work for you.
Yeah.
And I like how you say it. I like the recipe concept. So why don't you tell me more about the recipe concept?
Yeah, so the recipe is really tuning into who you are and what your values are. Barb,
Barbara, don't try to cure it. Try to
that's the
learn
whole
how to
point.
use it.
That's the whole point, Barb. Yep,
Just
you got it, so
know
leverage it.
thyself, right? Know
Know
thyself.
thyself.
Figure out how to fit that into what you want to do
Yeah,
instead of
yeah,
trying to change yourself.
exactly. Exactly. That is, if anyone gets anything out of this, that is know yourself, know your recipe. So there's 7 needs every human has. So we're kind of going back to values, and Martin and I would love to have Jen Cohn on in the new year and maybe work through values with everyone as a
Oh,
good starting point, because it's a great tool to use to really see where you're at. But health is one. So security. So, find the financial parts of things, emotional parts of things, esteem. We all need to work on our esteem, but esteem is your self-worth, autonomy, which we've been talking about, connection, purpose, and leisure. So those are the 7 human needs. So I'll say them real quick again: health, security, esteem, autonomy, connection, purpose, and leisure. And so if you have those 7 needs, you look at those are all things that we all need. So you need to be filling those buckets up with things in your daily, weekly, monthly life to create some flow for yourself. Now, 2 or 3 of them are going to resonate with you really, really strongly. And those are the ones you want to make sure you're doing daily and weekly. Um, and once you know your values, you can sort of come together and go, okay, if these are my values, how do I relate that to my business and my schedule and my family and my workload and my clients? It makes those decisions a little bit easier. So for you, Martin, what would you say are some of your top? Would autonomy be one of them?
That's gotta be on the tippy top.
Okay, tippy top. So autonomy for you.
Don't try to
Um,
tell me what to do.
I've tried. No.
Don't try to tell me what to do.
And for me, connection is number one for me. I gotta connect with people. And the funny thing is when I was out of balance, I was just dog paddling through life. I had no space left to connect with people. There was
Mm.
very little. And that made me just shrivel up even more because that is vital to for me as a human to have
Uh,
that on a constant basis.
I,
You're
I
rolling your
think
eyes.
that's no, I the opposite. I think that that is the epitome of why you're successful, right? Not only you realize that that was important to you and you sort of made it happen through separation of time, right? Like you're working and then you're connecting, but then the more you know yourself, the more you build the business where that's built in.
Yeah, that's
Your business is like
yeah,
chock full of connection and connection moments and connection
yeah,
opportunities
yeah,
because that's how you built it, right?
yeah.
And that's part of what I was trying to say at the beginning. There is no right way you should be doing your entrepreneurial journey, but it should be something that matters to you. The purpose side of the thing, the why, if you will, right? You can take any of those schools of thought. You can do the Simon Sinek thing, start with the why, or you can do the purpose and an entrepreneurship thing. But the whole point is why you're even doing it. Like,
Mhm,
what is it that
mhm,
it's fulfilling for you or,
mhm.
or causing for you to have that it's worth the effort, it's worth the time.
Exactly. So for me, it's not because I love coffee or I'm a good cook. I'm neither. Neither of those statements are true. It's the opportunity that I can give people, the connection, the culture. And as we're franchising, it's giving that balance and that life and the culture we've built to other people who can have their own business, who want the balance of life and the culture. When I've talked to people about the franchise, people have said, well, I really want to start this while I've got my full time job. And I've had to say that just doesn't work right now because that's not part of who we are as a culture.
You get addicted.
Tristan loves coffee now, he said. Yep, he's got that machine on every morning. They're all in there making their coffees. Um, so
It's
yeah, so I've had to turn people away because it doesn't fit
it,
what I'm looking to do.
it's a similar thing for me. You know, what I do has very little to do with people getting rich.
Mhm,
And in my niche, there's a lot of people who sell that. There's a lot of
mhm.
consultants or coaches or
Yeah.
whatever you want to call our kind that sell this hustle thing. Right? They sell this like, oh yeah, you want to make 8 figures. This is who you need to, and that is so not what I sell. So I also turn people away because that's what they come asking. Right?
Mhm,
What I'm about is
mhm,
ensuring that people love and get satisfaction and get
mhm.
self-expression out of what they do for a living.
Because they get longevity out of it besides
It's
enjoyment
it's
and
self-sustainable if you can pull
yeah.
it off that way, right? If
Mhm,
it's not self-sustainable, if
mhm,
what you're doing is always this sort of sacrifice taste.
Mhm. Right.
It just, it's not going to be sustainable.
Right.
You can do it, right? I've done stuff like that, right? Where you just look, I need to pay my rent, right? And I'm gonna
Yeah.
do this thing for that period, and that's
Right.
gonna get the stupid rent paid. And
Right.
there's absolutely nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, there isn't. And I'm glad we're talking about that too, because there are different times in your life and there's different goals in your life. Long term, being out of balance is not sustainable. But if you've got a financial goal and you're like, I have a full time job, but I'm going to drive Uber and talk to
Get
people
some shit done.
so I can get this debt paid off,
Yeah.
like that's responsible. And that is exciting when you have that goal and it's a short term thing, 6, 9 months, a year. You can do anything, but then, have the reward at the end and take care of yourself during that time. For sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
look, I mean, I don't want this to turn into a Megan Kelly commercial, but she also talks about how
Jeez.
she was selling clothes, right? She was selling her own clothes in Poshmark to fund her own business. I mean, that kind of stuff. She doesn't love that.
Mhm.
She
Mhm.
often says that some of it was even a mistake, right? Like she didn't even want
Mhm.
to do that, but that
Mhm.
is what it took to have
Mhm.
access to this thing that she loves now,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's the same. I
Yeah.
had to take, you know, corporate contracts that I didn't love or enjoy to,
Or drives you didn't love or
or like
enjoy.
the drives. Don't get me started on the drives, but it needed to get done so that I could have access to what I do now, right?
Right.
And there will be moments like that. What you gotta make sure is that they're not permanent fixtures, right? That
Exactly.
is not the design on how you want to do it.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
I wanted to go back to that because I want to give people some practical stuff here, right?
Mhm.
And it's hard to conceptualize somehow, right? Okay, well, you're talking about work-life balance. You're talking about having time for family, having time for enjoyment, having time for yourself, just to have a quiet moment. All of those things, nobody's going to argue they're important. The problem is that a lot of people don't know how to get to that. They don't know what the access is. So I'll tell you something is about concentrating on outcomes and not tasks.
Mhm. Mhm.
Again, right? The programming from corporate America, programming from school, it's like tasks. Do
Mhm.
this many of this, and that
Mhm.
is the job, right? Or
Right.
do it
Right.
in entrepreneurship, it does not work like that.
Mhm.
I don't care if it takes you 100 calls or one call to sell a thing, right? But if you're selling something, right, the goal shouldn't be I'm going to make 100 calls. The goal should be I'm going to sell a thing. So if you concentrate on the outcome, then
Mhm.
you have flexibility around how to achieve that outcome.
Mhm.
Maybe even you have the sort of open mindedness to pivot, right? If you're like,
Right.
if you get into it and said, okay, I need to sell a thing, right? That is the goal. And what you know is I'm going to make phone calls for it. Okay. You start making phone calls, and those phone calls are going horribly. Then you have an opportunity to pivot. You have an opportunity to say,
Exactly.
you know what? I'm going to try to go sell this shit live. I'm gonna go try to like just talk to people in
Yeah.
person, show
Yeah.
them the thing I'm selling. Maybe
Yeah.
that'll go different. Maybe I'll do social media. Maybe I'll put it in there. Maybe I'll do a live event and try to sell things there. But you start thinking differently when you focus on the outcomes instead of the tasks. The
So
task, let me
yeah.
just finish the thought in there. So the task focused people, right, are the ones who tell you all the time how busy they are,
Mhm.
but don't necessarily tell you the stuff they're accomplishing,
Mhm.
because usually they don't necessarily go hand to hand, right? So if your default is to concentrate on the amount of things you're doing, maybe it's time to start looking at outcomes, right? What are the things that you want to achieve? Call them outcomes, call them rocks, milestones. There's a lot of like theories and names for it, but the bottom line is it's like get some shit done and figure out how that contributes to your overall thing you want to see in the world, right? The thing you want to accomplish. If you do that, the balance piece will be a more obvious conversation, right?
Mhm.
So, for instance, in that example, have 100 calls is what you were thinking you were going to make. You realize that call 20, that's not going to happen. Then you go out and do networking events, for instance, and that's how you decide to go into it. By the time you're done selling one, which is one of the milestones I give to people, sell one, right? Just go sell one and figure out what that takes. Once you're done selling one, you can always go back and say, okay, well, the phone calling thing didn't work, right? I needed to improve that thing or scrap it altogether. The networking thing did, but it takes time, it takes energy. Like, okay, so how do I support myself in being available to do that? It'll make a little more sense than to concentrate on, well, how many calls can I get done?
Absolutely. And what you're talking about is a creative mind. So is it the chicken or the egg? Because what you need to do is you need to release yourself from paralysis. And one of the
Mhm.
ways you can release yourself from paralysis is taking care of yourself and having some balance. So if you're filling those buckets, then you're going to be able to have a creative mind to go, okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to pick up the phone. I'm going to try this instead of like, I just need to make the 300 or 100 calls and you've got your hands on the steering wheel so tight. Yeah. Does anybody ever feel like that where you're just like, oh, and once you release
White
yes,
knuckling business. Yeah.
and then once you release your hands or you go, "I'm taking a day off," or "I'm going on vacation," or something, all the ideas, the phones start ringing, the business comes back. I've had this happen to me several times to the point where Tristan's like, "Okay, you need to go." Um, so, you know, I love your point of the whole concept of it. And the underlying is to be able to keep my creativity to where when I'm in the shower, that's where I get my creative ideas and I start, oh, I could do this, I could do that, I could do this. To be able to do that, I have to be in a state of groundedness, somewhat balanced because when I'm Twitter pated, I don't know about anybody out there, there's nothing's happening good. Nothing.
So yeah, and I'm gonna say something. It's not magic, right? I mean, I know that there's a whole thing where people think that the universe brought you something or whatnot. It's fine, right? Like you can operate like that, but it is not magic. You see, here's the thing. I'm 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 a stickler for definitions, but creativity, it's basically the ability to bring something forth or bring something in existence that wasn't there before, right? So creativity needs space. It
It
needs a
needs space.
blank canvas, right?
It needs some zen
it
time.
needs for something to become nothing first, so that creativity can be brought up. And we're not talking about creativity as an artist, which is what I can hear a lot of my people go like, well, I'm not creative. Well, the whole point is, you need to bring something forth that wasn't there before,
Mm.
right? And if that's
Ideas.
what you're trying
Mhm,
to do, ideas, strategies, new ways to tackle a particular problem,
mhm.
in order for you to do that, the first thing you need to do is you need to achieve some level of cleanliness, some level of there's nothing there, and you can start, right? In stepping away, right? Taking a break, sort of stopping the noise is one of those things that is going to allow for that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it happens and it feels like magic. It feels like the
Mm,
universe brought you the solution
mhm,
because you created some space, right?
mhm.
Before that was there, before that space was there, it was just noise and clutter and like sort of the
Exactly.
same recirculated ideas and thoughts, right? If you are in this place where you cannot get past a problem because it's like There's no way to solve that. I don't think I don't see a solution. If you're there,
Mhm.
that's a moment to step away and go
Mhm.
do something you really
Mhm.
truly love. Go
Yep.
fishing, go,
Mhm. Go find your
um,
joy.
go find whatever that thing
Mhm.
is for you. I mean, some people go get massages. For me, that would be excruciating. But that's, but that's a moment to find that,
Mhm.
and solutions will come, right? It is almost
Mhm.
like brainstorming with yourself.
Exactly.
And
Exactly. Yeah.
that's one of those strategies to find balance.
Mhm.
You find balance by making space for it. You are
Exactly.
not going to find balance by continuing the same path that brought you no balance. If you're
Definition of
feeling
insanity.
if you're feeling burned out, if you're feeling like, stuff is not going your way and yet you're spinning your wheels,
Stop.
doing more of the same is so not going to do it.
Mhm. Yeah. And this is where you need a good friend, you need a business advisor, you need, people in your team to help you see that. Sometimes when you're in it, it can be difficult, but if you can become self-aware that you are spinning, then you can stop at least and reflect a little bit. And
Yeah.
journaling, you talked about journaling, or not journaling, but the outcome. What is the outcome you're trying to get at? That's a part of journaling. Just like whether it's an issue with work or you're trying to figure out your balance, like what is balance? What would my perfect day look like? What does balance look like for me? For me lately, I've been really working on not writing the emotions of other people. I'm not perfect at it, but I've had some really good instances in the last week or two where things happen. I stayed grounded. And then I was like, wow, I still have energy to go to that event that I was already planning on going. And normally I'd be like, that's it. I'm done for the day, that kind of thing. But I'm really starting to learn that, which is something that I've wanted to learn because I have a tendency to be codependent and I have a tendency to rob myself of my energy
Mm.
and give it to everyone else.
Yeah, and, I want to circle back to something you brought up because I'm glad you did. And it's a way to making space is to include other people.
Mhm,
For you to bounce around the same
mhm.
conversations inside your head is unlikely to just sort of magically turn into a, earth-shattering solution.
Right.
It's a good idea to get some of those thoughts out. It's a
Mhm,
good idea to have discussions. It's a good idea to ask for feedback. It's a good idea to
mhm,
basically say, hey, can I vent with you for 5 minutes? And just say,
mhm,
I'm like burned out. And
mhm.
if your counterpart is somewhat educated in the art of communication, they'll give you one of these, right? Do you want to vent or do you want some suggestions?
This is a great tool, people. Use this with your kids, your spouse, your
S-
friends,
especially
your
if you're
business.
especially if you're a guy, learn this one, right? Do you want to vent or do you want some suggestions?
Yeah, yeah,
Because that's going to generate even more of that space we keep talking about, right? It's going to generate a little more of that room to put some new stuff in there.
exactly.
You'll be surprised how many times I've seen this happen live where somebody's been rattling some problem around their heads for months. I connect them with somebody and immediately that gets resolved.
Well, I describe you in that scenario a lot with myself. With other people, I'll just say, I'll be like thinking in my head, it's so complicated. And because that's paralysis. And then I'll talk to you and you're like, you just do this. And I was like, oh, of course that's what you do. We need those advisors. We don't have to do it alone. One of the things, kind of going back a little bit, but there's always silver linings of challenges in our life. And one of the silver linings of the disability in our family was that we knew going in, we couldn't all do it ourselves. We had to pull people in. And that's where Tristan came in and, has been part of the company for 15 years and has ownership in the company. Because we knew we couldn't do that. And the silver lining in that is that created a structure of balance for us and
Mhm.
not getting burnt out. Because I know people in a similar business who they were two able bodies and they were
Yeah,
doing so much and then they just burnt out. They're like,
right.
I'm done.
No, totally. It makes sense. And another thing that gets brought up a lot when conversations about balance and work life and all that come up in entrepreneurship is, oh yeah, well, you're talking about that because you're an established business, right? You're not
Mhm,
starting out.
mhm,
And I want us to talk about that. I want us to talk about what it takes to find that in the early stages.
mhm, mhm,
And I'm going to circle back with a couple things, but basically, it's you have to know that if you're starting, there's a high likelihood that it's just you, right? You're a solopreneur at that time. And basically, you're doing all the things, you're wearing all the hats, you're responsible for absolutely every outcome of the thing. So that can get overwhelming real quick, right? And I have conversations with people like that all the time.
mhm.
And I always ask them this question. Okay, so you're the engine of this thing, right?
Mhm.
You're the engine. What's the maintenance plan you have for this engine? How are you ensuring that you will be there tomorrow to continue to do all the things that are needed, right? And
What's
that's
the consequence of you not being here? I mean, that's
what
a great question
happens if you
for
stop, right?
yeah,
If
that's a
you're
great
forced to
question.
stop.
Yeah. If I don't have balance in my life, what is the outcome if I don't have a balance? What's gonna happen? My health's gonna fail, things like that. Yeah,
For
for sure.
sure. And that's sort of that's the impact statement, right? And then how do I do this? Well, you know, think about it this way. Let's go back to the let's say you have established that 100 calls is not what you need to do, but you've established that you need to do 25 calls in a networking event to get an average sale of whatever it is you're selling. How many of those things, how many of those little cycles can you do back to back to back to back before you become ineffective at it such that you need more?
Mm,
Right? Think about it, right? If you do
mm,
25 calls and a networking event for one sale, but then you do it again tomorrow and again tomorrow and again tomorrow and again tomorrow, it's highly unlikely that you'll be equally effective, right? So your
mhm.
effectiveness is just going to start slipping.
Right.
What difference is it going to make for you if you don't make six sales instead you make five and take one day off to clear
Mhm,
your head, to be with your family, to learn something new?
mhm,
As a solopreneur, there's also that list of shit that you
mhm.
should be like learning.
Now, are you saying one extra day off during the week, or are you just saying one day off?
Look, I'm telling you, I talk to people who haven't taken a day off in months.
Oh god, don't do that. Don't do that.
And I'm like, when was your last day off? And be like, what do you mean? Right? The notion and what you're
Yeah.
told is that you have to just go, right? And you have to just build this thing. And
Mhm.
my retort to that is always like, who's going to build it if you blow out?
Yeah.
Is there going is there going to be somebody who'll just like pick it up and go after you blow it all out? And if there is, are they going to share ownership with you?
Yeah.
Right? No, what's going to happen is that, your competitor who's been watching you is going to just slip into that market that you've been building through all of your effort and just probably take your lunch.
Yeah.
Instead,
Yeah.
if you build yourself some level of sustainability, and for some of these guys, it doesn't take much, right? I say basic shit like schedule your lunches.
Right. Leave an hour early than you
Yeah.
normally would.
Shave an
Start an
hour.
hour later,
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
It's not going to kill your empire, right? It's
No.
not going to destroy your business empire to leave an hour earlier.
Right. Right.
And
Yeah, it makes me so nervous hearing that people are doing that. It makes
oh,
me feel like we could have a whole quarter talking about this in different aspects. And really, there's the fear level for people, there's the worthiness level for people, there is the societal pressures and the shoulds. And what do we really need to do to really get this through people's heads that you are worth a life of balance,
mm.
and your work is not your everything, and you're going to be so much better off
Even
by
if you yourself are the boss,
right.
right?
100%. 100%. This is
Because
to everyone.
there's levels to this whole thing, right? There's the corporate guy who's killing himself, or like you really really
Yeah.
shouldn't.
Oh, absolutely.
But then there's the entrepreneur guy who's killing himself and he really really shouldn't either, right? For entirely different reasons, right?
Yeah.
The corporate guy who's killing himself, I mean, dude, you're just not gonna get any value for that, right?
Yeah.
They're gonna lay you off just the same later
Yeah.
on, right? That's not gonna. Don't
Yeah.
do it. And
Right.
then the other guy is, well, you're going to stop. Something's going to happen, and you're going to stop.
Mhm.
And even if you don't stop, let's
Mhm.
say that you're a little superhero and like you just can push through that hard.
You're going to be
All you're
alone.
all you're doing is you're going to be alone, and all you're doing is being less effective as you go.
Yes, 100%. I love that less effective as you go. I'm so glad you brought that up because that is huge and that is the truth. And but people have to either experience it where they have the fall down, a lot of us learn that way. And then but if people can hear that and just have trust and faith in that, and, Martin, you and I are middle-aged people, and so we
Hey,
have some wisdom and experience because what I feel now, I had a hard time believing when I was 30. And, the hope is that people can really start to get this
yeah. Look,
this concept early.
I feel a little ambivalent about that particular concept. I feel like that's human nature, right? Like,
Human nature.
don't tell me I have to have experience. I'm gonna have to go have it myself, right? There's a little bit of human nature, but I am really encouraged by Generation Z and Generation Alpha.
Yeah.
Not only those guys are 100 times more comfortable than we were talking about mental health,
Yep.
talking about balance, talking
Yep.
about purpose, talking about what's really important. So there's that they have that we
They do.
didn't.
They do.
They were not brought up by boomer parents, right? So they
Yep.
have a lot
Yep.
more self-awareness, I will say. Probably as a
Mhm.
group, they have more self-awareness, but they
Mhm.
also have a lot more options.
Mhm.
See,
Mhm.
back in the day, you and I probably had no choice, right? You were either a full-time student or you had a part-time thing, and the
Mhm.
part-time things that were available were like the retail-ish sort of
They
like.
weren't gig economy, yeah. Mhm.
And now, I mean, the and this is a side conversation, but I have conversations with organizations and companies all the time about, oh yeah, we can't find employees who will commit to. And I'm like, well, they have options. They
Mhm.
have a million options
Mhm.
that when you present your little box of whatever the opposite of freedom is, that's not
Mhm.
appealing to them. They
Mm-mm.
have a lot of options and they can
Mhm.
choose, right? So maybe you want to start working on
Mhm.
options and flexibility, right?
Mhm.
But that's the other thing. I feel like not only they have a really great sort of mm, mental health approach to it, but they have
Mhm.
options. So
Right.
the entrepreneurship group, the group of people who are seeing this as a
Mhm.
viable way to exist in society is increasing, is growing.
Yeah. Yeah, for
And
sure.
and That's fantastic news for me.
And I'm really glad that you were kind of ending on that note, because you're right. They do know a lot more about where they're at. They're a lot more self-aware about what their needs are, and that is great. Um, and we are almost to the top of the hour, if you can believe that. I could talk about this topic for 8 hours straight. I have so many things to say about it. But as we brainstorm for our new year, this is going to be something that I think is important to keep talking about throughout the year, and love to have people on who want to talk about, I'm struggling with balance. Where do I start? And really giving some baby steps on how to do that based on their recipe.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Same. If you're listening and you want to get on the show and talk about some entrepreneurship journey issues or concepts or concerns or where you're stuck, more than happy to do that with you.
absolutely, absolutely. And it's really fun, actually.
That it is.
And there's some huge aha moments that can happen. So our next live stream is December 1st. Is that correct?
I think so.
Okay. And I
I'll
will
trust
be
you.
don't trust me on that. This is not where I excel. Let me see. Okay. Yes. It's
Yes,
December
December
1st.
1st.
And like I told Tristan, and now I have to tell you, I will be in New Jersey reporting live reporting live. And we're going to go deeper into those 13 hats of an entrepreneur. And we'll put a little balance in there, but we're going to talk about those 13 hats and how to balance those. Which ones do you offset? When do you offset them? And dive a little deeper into that.
We'll do
So
that.
perfect. Awesome. Thanks everyone for joining us today. We so appreciate it. It is a sunny Friday in the Pacific Northwest. So go enjoy it and some of those gorgeous leaves out there. And we will see you next time.
See you guys next time.